No, you don't. Depending on the risk of that process or procedure, you document things that actually add value to your organization. So in terms of recording of non-conformance or management of accidents, it's hard to justify why your company doesn't need to have a formal way of recording accidents. So depending on the importance of it, you do need to document them, but you don't need to document everything within the management system. And as we previously discussed, if a process is self-explanatory, if you've engineered it in such a way that the human intervention is as minimal as possible and the process takes care of itself, then you don't need to document it. A good example would be in a manufacturing area. If a setting of a machine was from the barcode of that specific job and you just scan it and the machine setting just changed, you don't need to document it because that coding itself is the documented information. And also use of software solutions. So for example, with internal audit, you could write 10 pages on a document on internal audit, on who's responsible, what templates you use, the schedule of it, who reviews it, who needs to conduct it, the frequency of it, and so on. Whereas in Mango, you can just create the schedule. The template is already there. You've already assigned the responsibility. You already assigned the person who are going to review it. You've already assigned the events and escalation. So you actually don't need to have the procedure because you've already created all the actions in the system. So the system itself takes care of it. So the less procedures you have and the more actions you create, the better implemented your management system, because people actually get reminders on doing things rather than you describing what they should do.
No, you don't need to document everything in your management system. We've talked in the previous answer about, yes, there's some mandatory documentation required by ISO standards. You can do a search for the phrase documented information and it will help you identify pretty quickly what you must document. For the rest of it, it's really a business choice, and do a little bit of hard thinking about that. Number one, do the team performing that process actually need documented instructional guidance? A good question number two that's often overlooked is, well, how did that team learn? What's the best format to put that in? A document's not always a written document. It can be a flowchart, it can be visual, it can even be a video. In other cases, you'll have other processes, where if they're already well supported, if people are trained, competent, you do lots of on-the-job training, you've got supervision, audits, lots of controls around your process other than documentation, then you may not need to document it at all if that's an effective, supported process. That takes a little bit of understanding. There's videos on the Mango website about understanding your processes, but yes, if they are well supported, you're achieving them consistently, you don't need to document them. Take a risk-based approach as well. Where things are more complex or high risk, there may be more need to document things as well. As a final point too, a lot of organisations we work with have actually got too much documentation. The team performing the process don't actually look at it, and that's an indicator that perhaps it's too long or not fully needed as well.
The standard does not require you to develop processes for absolutely everything. The standard will turn around and say that you need to define the manner by which you achieve certain items. By defining it, you can do it through the schedules, you can do it through workflows, you can do it through a procedure if you choose. It just needs to be repeatable. You need to be able to go and clearly articulate and show to an auditor that you have a process and that is controllable. This could be a system workflow. This could be an automated system in the back end that you don't see how it works, but it's set up to run.
Not at all, you don't have to document everything. However, the standards are also quite rich in defining what does need to be documented. So you need to have a documented scope, you need to have a documented policy. When it comes to ISO 45001, you need a documented risk assessment. So generally, the standards will require that you have a document where evidence is required to demonstrate conformity.
Absolutely not. You do not need to document everything your business does within your management system. It's important to recognize what does need to be documented and what does not. We have to remember we have educated individuals working in our business, so why would we document absolutely everything we do? Of course, we have to consider the risk. What is the risk if someone does not follow protocol or does not follow a set methodology which would be expected of them. If the potential for something of greater risk or impact to our business could occur, then the likelihood is that we may wish to document that. Falling back on a previous point, there are certain things we simply have to document. It's a legal requirement in many countries, and also to meet international standards. But to answer the fundamental first question, do we have to document everything? Absolutely not.
No, you don't need to document everything in your quality management system. You determine what you believe needs to be documented over and above the mandatory stuff. Thereafter, use a risk-based approach to determine what you need to write down.
If you enjoyed this video, click on the link to view the next compliance conversation.